Good day, everyone. I am Zeeny-Ann Caga-anan, and I will be the last reporter for our group discussion. Today, I will be discussing to you the last two remaining factors of economic development, which are population and geography. But first, let us tackle population. So, what is population? Population is a particular section, group, or type of people or animals living in an area or a country. So in the next slides, we will learn why population is both an advantage and disadvantage in economic development. Population can be an advantage if people are productive and creative. So this means that they can support themselves by utilizing the resources in their environment and by manufacturing the raw materials for commerce. So some development economists are not in favor of birth control. People are the most important resources in economic development according to them. There are development economists who do not agree or who do not favor of birth control because they believe that people are the most important resources in economic development. Ngano man kaha nga para nila ang mga tao man ang most important resources in economic development. This is because people are the ones who have the ability to work on in having economic development or in attaining economic development of a country. So that is why they do not emphasize birth control. Instead, those development economists who do not agree or who do not in favor of birth control, they suggested improvement of methods of production, especially for food production. Because food production is very important for people. Kaya nga nung very important man, so of course, this is our needs to survive. Ang pagkaon ang atong kailangan para makasurvive ta. So sorry for the interruption no, kay nag-uwan diri sa amua. Unta madungog yapon ko ninyo. So nawawa naman pud siya. So let us go back to our discussion. Move to the next slide. Developed countries that have insufficient number of people encourage immigration of aliens in order to help them accelerate their economic development. So kadtong mga dato nga na country that have insufficient number of people or nagkuwang sa number of people, they encourage immigration of aliens. So unsa maning immigration of aliens? So aliens here doesn't mean kanang nagpuyo sa outer space or kanang atong makita sa TV. Immigration of aliens means a person who is not a citizen of a particular country. So maybe kadto nga person is nidungra siya adto nga country para manarbaho. So again, developed countries that have insufficient number of people encourage immigration because they want to help them accelerate their economic development. Example here is Canada. Diba ang Canada is well-developed man nga nation or country? However, gamay ra ang tao sa Canada. So mauna nga ang Canada, mang-hire sila og laing tao gikan sa laing country. For example, Filipinos. Diba daghan kaayong Filipinos nga nanarbaho sa Canada. So ang Canada, ilahang gi-hire ang mga Filipinos in order to help them accelerate their economic development. Kayo dili man pwede if walay tao no or magkuwang ang isa ka well-developed countries sa tao kay kinsa na may mo buhat sa ilang production para ma-boost ang ilang economic development and as well as growth pod. So on the other hand, population is a great burden if the rate of population growth is higher than the rate of production growth. These situations are exactly the problems of less developed countries. So mauna ni siya ang disadvantage of population if ang rate of population growth is mas taas sa rate of production growth. Mauna ni siya ang reasons nganong ang population is a great burden or disadvantage in economic development. These situations are exactly the problems of less developed countries. So when we say less developed, mauni sila ang mga countries nga mga pobre. For example, Philippines. So although Philippines is developing na siya, na nabutang na siya sa developing countries, naka-experience gyapon ta ani no, kaya nga to ang population growth is mas higher pa sa ato ang production growth. This means nga ang Philippines is naglisod gyud because mas daghan pa man ang population kaysa sa production nga iyahang na-produce. Philippines is one of the most populous countries around the world. So I think, if I am not mistaken, it ranks number 13 globally in terms of population. Now we will move to the next slides. Poor countries with high birth rates are advised to adopt family planning programs. However, it is not successful due to religious, cultural, and economic reasons. Ako ang example again ng Philippines. So, di ba we all know that Philippines is a Christian country, or majority of the Filipinos are Christian believers. So, in our country, experts would say nga dapat mag-adapt na ta sa family planning program sa gobyerno kay para malasen ang atuang population. However, wala gyapon ni siya na widely practiced, and it is considered a sensitive topic gihapon no, kay we are a very conservative country. Christians doesn't allow abortion. It is a crime as well as one of the biggest moral sins for Christian believers. In our religion, contraceptives are not highly acknowledged or not widely used or practiced, no, because we believe in natural method, and that is why kanang ato ang i-disregard ang mga family planning programs nga gihatag sa gobyerno or giingon sa mga expert, kay ang gitudlo sa simbahan dili advisable ang paggamit ani. So mauna ang one reason why Philippines have high birth rates because of our religious reasons. There are also other cultural and economic reasons of why a country has high birth rates. So let us move to the next slide. There are a lot of countries with abundant natural resources and few people, but they are still poor. Good example is Brazil. Daghan nga mga countries nga naay abundant natural resources and few people, but they are still considered poor. Good example is Brazil. So it means that the problem is not population but production. Even if the country is overpopulated but has high productivity, there is a progress. So ngano kaha nga ang Brazil is pobre gihapon bisan og abundant sila sa natural resources and gamay ra ang ilahang population. So maybe wala nila gigamit into production ang ilahang mga natural resources, mauna nga wala ni excel or wala ni grow ang Brazil. Say for example, China. China is the world's most populous country, di ba? Or mauni sila ang pinakadaghan yun og tawo sa tibuok kalibutan, naa sa China na bilong. Pero ang China, despite being overpopulated, they are very high in productivity. So tan-awa ng inyong mga gamit, di ba kasagaran is nakabutang made in China. So therefore makahuna-huna tanong nga bisan pa og daghan kaayo ang population sa China, pero ang ilahang productivity is taas. There is progress in their country despite having a massive population when compared to Brazil. Ang Brazil is gamay ra gani ang ilahang population and abundant sila og natural resources. However, they are still poor. While ang China, dato ang China kay ang ilahang production or ang ilahang productivity is high man bisan pa og populated ang ilahang country. So that is why the problem is not population but production. Middle East countries have barren land, but they are rich in oil resources. Such natural resources are good sources of income for funding various programs of the government. So unsa maning barren land? When we say barren land, it has a thin soil, rocky or sandy. So therefore, ang barren land wala kaayoy tanom nga mabuhi ani nga land area. And we all know that Middle East countries are sandy, diba? Desert, daghan kaayo desert sa Middle East. However, despite of being a barren land, they are rich in oil resources. We also know that Middle East countries are the major producer of oil resources globally, and such natural resources are good sources of income for funding various programs of the government. Middle East countries became highly developed countries because of their oil resources. Mauni ang ilahang source of income nga nakatabang para mahimong dato ang Middle East countries. In the case of Africa, it is a giant continent, but only 7% of its land area is arable. Only 50% of arable land is used for food production. Africa is a giant continent. However, 7% ra sa ilahang total land area is arable. So, unsa man ning arable? When we say arable, mao ni siya ang land area nga pwede katamnan or can be farmed. And only 50% of arable land is used for food production. So, kadtong land area nga pwede katamnan, arable, 50% of it is used for food production. So, di ba mas nindot unta if nag-allocate ang Africa og mas dako nga percent for their food production. Kay ang food production is very important man kay mao ni ang atong need to survive. Ang pagkaon ang atong need to survive. Very limited agriculture land is further compounded by floods and droughts. Rains are too much, too little, or none at all. Such natural hazards greatly impoverish the peoples of Africa. So kadtong limited agricultural land makasinati pagyud og natural disasters or hazards such as flood and droughts. Usahay kuno daghan ang rains sa Africa, usahay gamay ra, and usahay wala gyud none at all. Such natural hazards greatly impoverish. So maoy nakapapubrig samot sa mga tao nga nagpuyo sa Africa. In Africa, many died of hunger and disease. During prolonged drought, crops die as well as their work animals. The agonies of the millions of Africans are also man-made disasters like tribal slaughters, civil wars, and banditry. Ang kasakit nga nasinati sa Africans dili ra about sa natural disasters or hazards. They also have man-made disasters such as tribal slaughters, civil wars, and banditry. Luoy gyud kaayo ang mga tao sa Africa. So let us move to the next slides. Japan and Israel are countries with poor natural resources, but they were able to achieve remarkable economic growth. So ang Japan and Israel, dili sila kaayo blessed when it comes to natural resources, pero they were able to achieve remarkable economic growth. Despite of having poor natural resources, ang Japan and Israel is well-developed countries gihapon. In Japan, only about 16% of its total land area is arable or can be farmed. During winter, one half of said farm area is covered with snow. Because of its meager natural resources, Japan imports about 90% of raw materials for its industries. So sa Japan, 16% ra sa ilang total land area can be farmed or arable. And during winter period, one half of farm area is makovered with snow. Kay tungod sa kakuwangon nila or meager of natural resources, ang Japan nag-import about 90% of the raw materials for its industries. So, di ba, bisan pa og 90% of raw materials gi-import ra sa Japan, they are still highly developed country, so they have remarkable economic growth. Despite its geographical limitations, Japan has become the fastest growing industrial society in the world. Through capital and technology, it has achieved phenomenal economic growth. So, di ba, despite sa meager of natural resources sa Japan and ang ilahang arable land is na-covered with snow, they still became the fastest growing industrial society in the world. So ilahang gipakadak-an ang technology sa Japan. We all know that Japan is a very advanced technological country, di ba? So kung mudong ka sa Japan, almost everything is naaadto. Robots, cellphones, fastest Wi-Fi, ug daghan pagyud kaayo nga mga new technological discovery ang nahimo sa Japan. Mauna nga naka-achieve sila og phenomenal economic growth. So, makaingon gyud tano nga bisan pa og dili kaayo rich sa natural resources ang Japan, wala sila nagpapildi sa ilahang problema nga nagkuwang sila og natural resources. They use their skills and creativity to create a highly technological society. And that is the reason why Japan became the fastest growing industrial society and achieved phenomenal economic growth and development. So same with Japan, Israel is also prosperous. So dato pud ang Israel. Formerly, it was a barren land. So again, barren land, wala kaayoy tanom nga mabuhi ani nga land area. In the beginning, it had a pastoral economy. Today, Israel has a developed economy. Through modern agricultural technology, its arid land became fertile and verdant. It is now an exporter of farm crops aside from industrial goods. So same with Japan, Israel is also poor in natural resources. So formerly, it was a barren land. So again, when we say barren land, it has a thin soil, rocky or sandy, walay tanom nga mabuhi ani nga land area. So in the beginning, it had a pastoral economy. However, ang Israel nahimong developed economy despite having a barren land. Kay nganuman, they utilized modern agricultural technology, and tungod ani ang ilahang barren land nahimong fertile and verdant. So now, nahimong exporter of farm crops ang Israel aside from industrial goods. So dako gyud kaayong tabang ang pag-utilize sa modern agricultural technology sa Israel para maka-achieve sila og economic growth and development. So nahimong prosperous country ang Israel despite being formerly a barren land and having poor natural resources. So let us move to the next slides. Transportation and communication are likewise affected by geographical structure. Great rivers help accelerate economic development. In fact, the first civilizations emerged in great river valleys like Tigris, Euphrates, and the Nile. In the case of the Philippines, it has more than 7,641 islands. Such geographical layout does not provide a good network of transportation and communication, and this adversely affects the process of economic growth. Philippines is an archipelago. It has 7,641 islands, and this geographical layout does not provide good network of transportation and communication. So, ang atuang geographical sa Pilipinas maglisod gyud tano og transportation and communication kay dili man pwede nga dili ta mo travel kay by island baya ta, so kailangan gyud tang muagi sa dagat, and this adversely affects the process of economic growth. Iyahang gipaslow ang atuang process of economic growth. So geographical disadvantage can be eliminated or reduced through the proper use of technology and capital. So ang geographical disadvantage kay pwede nato mawala or pwede nato malesen with the proper use of technology and capital. However, katong mga pobre nga mga nations or countries, dili sila maka-afford nga ma-eliminate or ma-reduce ang ilahang disadvantages sa geographical because wala man sila'y enough or adequate nga technology and capital. Diba, dili na gani sila makabayad sa ilhang utang sa foreign debt nila, and dili na sila maka-accommodate sa ilahang mga tao, dili sila makahatag og pagkaon, subsidies, how much more nga ilahang mapawala ang geographical disadvantages nga naa sa ilahang country. So kadtong mga dato nga country, mura pud to sila'y mas mudato, while kadtong mga pobre nga country, mas mapobre pud to sila kay gamay raman sila og technology and capital. This slide ends our group report. Thank you everyone for listening. Pero naapod may application part nga giandam para ninyo. So this application part will serve as your attendance for this subject. So kindly comment down below in the G-class kay amo maning i-post sa G-class amo ang report. I-comment down ra ninyo below ang inyong mga answer sa amo ang application part. So this is our application questions. Question number 1. What are the non-economic and economic factors that affect the economic development of a country? Explain how these factors affect the growth of the economy. Question number 2. What are the advantages and disadvantages of technology to the economic development of a less developed countries? And lastly, describe how our negative cultural values affect the economic growth and development of our country. So, this is all our application part. Thank you everyone and have a blessed day.